So now you have the internship of your dreams and you want to make the most of it. That's what we're going to talk about today. P.S. I come from early stage investing, so that is primarily what I'm talking about here. Also, your mileage will vary by firm, obviously. My number one and first tip is to speak up and add value in any way you can. Something that I thought a lot during my internship is I would have like something to say, but it would be in a big group full of people who obviously know so much more than I do. And I'd be like, should I say something? Should I say something? And you should err on the side of saying something, assuming it's like a pretty smart, thoughtful thing, because I reminded myself all the time no one hired you to say nothing. They could have hired air for that. And so speak up. Also, even though you are a young person, so maybe you're still a student, there is always something that you can do that the other people who are much older than you or much more experienced than you can't do. As in, you actually bring like a super valuable perspective or time, etc. So, for example, you have a lot more time than the average investor on your team. And so, let's say you're looking at a product, you can actually extensively play through that app or use that app or play through that game, have a very detailed write up about it, which is both super valuable to the people you're working with who did not have the time to do that, and it'll be super valuable to founders who most of the time don't deal with investors who've actually played their game or significantly used their app. You have time to your advantage. Also, it's possible that you are part of a demographic that other investors on your team are not. So, for example, you might be younger than the average person on your team. And so, if you're testing out a consumer product targeted towards college students and you're a college student, great. You can get yourself and your friends to test out that app. Or maybe you have a younger sibling who's in middle school and someone is creating something that's targeted towards like the Gen Z population. Then you can ask these middle school people that you know or younger siblings to review that app for you and get user feedback that a lot of your MDs or people that you're working with do not have. There are lots of other examples of this. Maybe you have a PM background, maybe you're technical, maybe you came from research. Just think about where can you add value where others cannot and then say it. One really good rule of thumb that I did when I was an intern is I thought to myself in every session, so like every Zoom session or every time I meet a new person, can I ask one question that was smart? Can I get in one comment that was thoughtful? If you do that, that's a win. Second tip, which is actually something my manager told me when I was an intern at a VC firm, is you should always include your own opinions. Something we say a lot is strong opinions, loosely held. But my point being, you should always have an opinion. What is the alternative of having an opinion? It is just doing the work that you were given. So, for example, maybe you've been tasked to make a model, or maybe you've been tasked to check out a product. It is very easy to just summarize what's been given to you. So, for example, maybe you say, here's what we talked about during the meeting, and here's the model that I created for it, and here's what the product does. That's great, but you should always also include your opinion. So, tactically speaking, after a meeting, for example, that you are summarizing for maybe the partner that you're working with, what you should do is in a very organized way and in priority order, yes, summarize what that call was about. So here's what the team's background is, here's what the product does, here's what the market is, etc. And at the beginning and at the end of when you're communicating this via email or talking, you should add your own opinion. I think we should do this deal because XYZ. I did not like this company because of XYZ. If you only do the summary, you are very replaceable and you are not adding like unique value to yourself. You essentially can be replaced by like AI. Okay, the third tip is to be proactive about showing your work. Realize that the vast majority of people just think about themselves and do not spend that much time thinking about you. So they're not thinking, oh, how much work has my intern done this week, more often than not. So it is actually your responsibility to show the work that you've been doing. Generally, just being a phenomenal communicator and managing upwards in venture is so important because the vast majority of VCs do not have management experience. They have experience doing deals, aka they're actually usually not that good at managing an intern. Most people are, anyways, management's really hard, etc., etc. So for example, if you are given a task, you should actually set the expectation of when that's due if your manager doesn't already do that. So for example, let's say someone asked me to build a market map. I would say, okay, this is the scope of the market map that I'm going to build for you. Is it all right if I get it to you by end of week? I will send you an update in a couple days. Allow them to then say yes or no and adjust. But essentially, you can see here that I am proactively setting an expectation about what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it, and make sure you deliver on time or early. And let's say the thing that I've built I think is actually generally really helpful. So, for example, okay, I've come up with this market map and thesis for gaming slide deck. What if there's some other people at the firm who would actually really appreciate that? So not just the gaming team, but maybe the consumer team or the crypto team would also find this interesting. Proactively, if you feel comfortable, but also you should just generally do this, send it out and say, here's what I've been working on this summer. Here are a few slides that I actually think you would find really interesting in your position as a consumer investor or as a crypto investor. Slides 3, 4, 5. Here you go. Because if you do not show off your work, no one knows what you are doing. Similar to if you don't say anything, no one can read your mind. Great communication is the probably biggest sign of maturity. Okay, and finally, my last tip to really make the most of your internship is to try and meet as many people as you can reasonably across the firm and across the industry. Also, you want to make sure, of course, that you have good questions for them. So, an example of people to talk to and good questions to ask them are maybe there's some people who have previously worked with your manager. Both ask them, of course, about their life and like things that interest them, but also ask them a good question is, what was it like working with your manager? What are some things that they don't like that you had to learn that they really appreciate, etc. Another example is to find maybe someone who was previously also an intern and then became a full-time member of the team and ask them, what did you do as an intern? What are some tips that you have? Who should I talk to, etc., etc. And when it comes to talking to people pretty high up at the firm, like let's say, partners or MDs, you have the advantage of being a young person asking for time, which I think a lot of people love coaching young people, but also their time is super valuable. And so don't be offended if they say no or if they ignore your message because, again, their time is really valuable. But it's very great to ask them when you're in the intern position because people should feel obligated to help interns. So, what is a smart use of that time? Well, you can extensively research what they've talked about online or other opinions that they've, stated online before. And you can also look at the deals that they've already done. Maybe you have access to the investment memo. A lot of people love to talk about stories of the past. And then also, you can get a ton of value by maybe reading the investment memo of a legendary deal that one of your partners did like 10 years ago and ask them at the time, what did this deal look like? Get the story out of them. What did this team look like? Like, what did you know a year later that you didn't know at the time of the deal? When was the company doing really poorly? What were turning points in this company's history? Those are all really good examples to get that conversation going and for it to be valuable for both you and them. The other reason why talking to people just in the industry generally during your internship is so great is because working as a VC, you have a ton of privilege in terms of access. Probably the number one best part of the job is the fact that you get access to kind of like blanketly people in the startup ecosystem, and you never know what might come of that. Like people who are your coworkers might turn into really good friends. People you randomly meet through the craziest connections might end up being people you start a company with, or you end up working for, or you do this really cool project together. Especially because getting into a venture internship is hard enough, and getting a full time offer out of that is honestly even harder, especially in this economy. And so you will never be worse off by taking advantage of those opportunities to meet a ton of people across the industry. By the way, a lot of my channel is now going to be my friends and I building these cool little tech tools, which I'm so excited about. But every once in a while, I'm still going to do videos like this, which I think are just hopefully kind of helpful on topics that are helpful. And yeah, if you want to see all of that, then please subscribe and comment and whatever else people say.